My grandson, a sweet, bright-eyed boy of 5, tugged on my sleeve, his face a mask of urgent secrecy amidst the joyous chaos of my son's wedding reception. "Grandma," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the blare of the band and the clinking of glasses, "look under the table, please." He pointed towards the head table, where my son, David, and his new wife, Sarah, were laughing, oblivious. What I saw next, tucked discreetly beneath the pristine white linen, would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family and shatter the perfect facade of that day. Was I wrong for what I did next, for exposing the truth in such a public, devastating way? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. This whole mess started years ago, long before the wedding invitations were even printed. My son, David, had always been a bit of a golden boy. Handsome, intelligent, successful, he had a charm that could disarm anyone. He married his high school sweetheart, Emily, when they were both fresh out of college. Emily was everything you could want in a daughter-in-law, kind, loving, incredibly patient, and she adored David with every fiber of her being. They had my grandson, Leo, a few years later, and their little family seemed picture-perfect. I loved Emily like my own daughter, and Leo was the light of my life. David had a demanding job, often traveling for weeks at a time, but Emily never complained. She managed everything at home, raised Leo, and still found time to be a wonderful wife and friend. I truly believed they had a marriage built on solid rock, a foundation of unwavering love and respect. That's why the news hit me like a physical blow when David called me, his voice strangely flat, to tell me he and Emily were divorcing. He gave me the usual spiel, "We've grown apart. It's for the best. We both want different things." I didn't believe it for a second. Emily was heartbroken, absolutely devastated. She confided in me, tears streaming down her face, that she had no idea this was coming. She said David had become distant over the past year, always busy, always stressed, but she attributed it to work pressures. She suspected he was seeing someone else, but she had no proof, and David denied it vehemently. I wanted to confront David, to shake some sense into him, but he was evasive, shutting down every conversation that delved too deep. He moved out of their house almost immediately, leaving Emily and Leo in a state of shock and confusion. I tried to be there for Emily, to offer comfort and support, but my heart ached for her and for Leo, who couldn't understand why his daddy wasn't coming home. Then, just 6 months after the divorce was finalized, David announced he was engaged to Sarah. Sarah was a colleague of his, someone I vaguely remembered him mentioning once or twice. She was considerably younger than David, glamorous, and frankly, a bit too polished for my taste. When I met her, she was polite, almost excessively so, but there was a coolness in her eyes, a calculating air that made me uneasy. Emily was still reeling from the divorce, and the news of David's engagement so quickly felt like a slap in the face. It certainly confirmed her suspicions about another woman. My heart went out to her, and I found myself growing increasingly resentful of David and Sarah. I struggled to understand how my son, the man I raised, could so easily discard a loving, devoted wife and mother for someone new, especially when it caused so much pain. The wedding planning began in a whirlwind. David and Sarah wanted a lavish affair, a grand celebration that screamed new beginnings. I felt a knot in my stomach every time they talked about it, knowing the pain it inflicted on Emily and Leo. My grandson, bless his innocent heart, was confused. He loved his father, but he missed his mother and the life they had before. He'd often ask me why Daddy wasn't living with them anymore, and I'd try my best to explain it in terms he could understand, without bad-mouthing his father. It was heartbreaking. I tried to maintain a civil relationship with Sarah for David's sake, but it was difficult. There was an undercurrent of tension, a sense that she saw me as a relic of David's past, someone who knew too much. The day of the wedding arrived, bright and sunny, almost mockingly perfect. The ceremony was beautiful, if a little sterile. Sarah looked stunning in her elaborate gown, and David, despite his forced smile, seemed genuinely happy. I watched Leo during the ceremony, perched on Emily's lap in a pew towards the back, his little face somber. He was David's only child, yet he wasn't part of the bridal party, wasn't walking down the aisle. That hurt me deeply. I felt he was being pushed aside, his role in David's life diminished by this new marriage. After the ceremony, we all moved to the grand reception hall, a truly opulent space decorated with flowers and fairy lights. The champagne flowed, the music swelled, and everyone seemed to be in high spirits. Everyone, that is, except for me, who carried a heavy heart. I was at a table with some distant relatives, trying to make small talk, but my gaze kept drifting towards the head table. David and Sarah were radiant, holding hands, sharing private jokes. It looked like the fairy tale ending, the kind of love story you read about. If you didn't know the backstory, if you didn't know the collateral damage, I was trying to convince myself to just smile, be happy for my son, and let the past be the past. But something inside me churned. The injustice of it all, the way Emily had been treated, the pain Leo had endured, it was a bitter pill to swallow. I wondered if David ever truly reflected on the hurt he had caused, or if he was simply swept up in the excitement of his new life. And then Leo approached me. He had snuck away from Emily, who was probably trying to keep him entertained at their own table. He was clutching a small, crumpled piece of paper in his hand. His little brow was furrowed with concern, his eyes wide and earnest. "Grandma," he whispered again, pulling on my dress, "look under the table." He didn't elaborate, just kept repeating it, his small voice filled with an urgency that couldn't be ignored. He pointed again, this time more insistently, towards the head table, right where David and Sarah were sitting. He pressed the crumpled paper into my hand. It was a drawing, a child's drawing of a family, a daddy, a mommy, and a little boy. But the mommy looked suspiciously like Sarah, with long blonde hair, and she had a visibly bulging belly. My blood ran cold. So that's the situation I was in, a wedding reception overflowing with celebration, my heart already heavy with past hurts, and now this cryptic message from my grandson, coupled with a drawing that implied a secret pregnancy. I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have ignored it, brushed it off as a child's imagination, or would you have investigated? What would your next move be? My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I looked from the drawing to Leo, who nodded his head, his eyes imploring. "Under the table, Grandma," he reiterated, his voice a desperate plea. I knew, with a gut-wrenching certainty, that this wasn't just a child's whim. Leo was a smart boy, and there was a seriousness in his demeanor that spoke volumes. The drawing was too specific, too telling. The bulging belly, the blonde hair, it couldn't be a coincidence. My mind raced, piecing together fragments of information. David's sudden divorce, his quick engagement, the feeling that something was always just beneath the surface, hidden. Could it be true? Could Sarah have been pregnant before the divorce was even finalized? Or even worse, while David was still married to Emily? The implications were staggering. If Sarah was pregnant, and had been for a while, it meant David's timeline of growing apart was a meticulously crafted lie. It meant Emily had been betrayed in the cruelest way possible, and it meant this wedding wasn't a fresh start, but a desperate cover-up. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. The band was playing a lively tune. People were dancing, laughing, raising toasts. It was a scene of unbridled joy, and I was about to shatter it. But I couldn't ignore Leo. I couldn't ignore the truth that was practically screaming at me. I walked towards the head table, feigning an innocent smile, as if I were merely approaching to congratulate the happy couple again. David caught my eye and beamed. Sarah gave me a polite, almost wary smile. I exchanged a few pleasantries, my gaze subtly scanning the space beneath the table. The white tablecloth draped elegantly, hiding everything from view. I knelt, pretending to adjust my shoe, my heart hammering in my chest. And there it was, a small, designer diaper bag, partially hidden by the flowing fabric. It was a light blue, a color usually associated with baby boys. My hand trembled as I reached out, my fingers brushing against the soft material. It wasn't empty. It felt like there were indeed things inside, baby essentials. My stomach clenched. It was real. Sarah was pregnant, or had already given birth. The drawing wasn't an imagination. It was a secret. The truth hit me with the force of a freight train. David and Sarah were not just getting married. They were hiding a baby that must have been conceived while David was still legally married to Emily. The timing was too perfect, too suspicious. The divorce, the swift engagement, the subtle shift in Sarah's figure that I had attributed to wedding stress, or perhaps just my own critical eye. It all clicked into place. My son, my golden boy, had not only cheated on Emily, but had gotten his mistress pregnant, and then orchestrated a quick divorce and remarriage to cover it all up. The audacity, the cruelty, the blatant disrespect for Emily, for me, for his own son, Leo. A wave of ice, cold fury washed over me, chilling me to the bone. All the pain Emily had suffered, all the confusion Leo had endured, it was all for this meticulously planned deception. I stood up, slowly, the diaper bag's presence burning in my mind. David was toasting with his new wife. He looked at me, his smile faltering slightly as he caught the expression on my face. He must have seen something in my eyes, a flicker of understanding, of accusation. I didn't say a word to him. Instead, I walked purposefully towards the bandleader, my mind a whirl of righteous anger. I pulled him aside, whispered a request, pressed a generous sum of cash into his hand. He looked surprised, then nodded, intrigued. He announced over the microphone that there was a special announcement, a surprise toast from the mother of the groom. A hush fell over the room as people turned their attention to me. David and Sarah looked at me, their faces a mix of confusion and apprehension. I took the microphone, my hand still shaking, but my voice, surprisingly, was steady, clear, resolute. To David and Sarah, I began, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces. What a beautiful day! What a wonderful celebration of love and new beginnings! My voice dripped with sarcasm, though I doubt anyone picked up on it initially. I've known David his whole life, and I've always been proud of the man he became. I paused, letting my words hang in the air, my eyes locking with David's. He looked pale, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Sarah, beside him, stiffened. But today, I'm not just toasting to a new marriage. I'm toasting to a new family. A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. I saw Emily, at her table, looking utterly bewildered. Leo, however, was watching me, a knowing look on his small face. "You see," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "my wonderful grandson, Leo, just shared a secret with me. A very special secret." I held up Leo's drawing, the one of Sarah with the pregnant belly, for all to see. Gasps erupted around the room. David's face turned ashen. Sarah's eyes widened in horror. "It seems," I said, my voice cutting through the stunned silence, "that this wedding isn't just about David and Sarah. It's also about David and Sarah's new baby, a baby that, if my calculations are correct, must have been conceived while David was still married to Emily." The room erupted, a cacophony of whispers, gasps, and shocked exclamations. Sarah shot a furious look at David, then burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. David, red-faced, stumbled to his feet, trying to snatch the microphone from me. "Mom, what are you doing?" he hissed, his voice trembling with rage and humiliation. I pulled the microphone away, maintaining my hold. "What am I doing, David? I'm telling the truth. I'm standing up for Emily, for Leo, for every person you deceived." I pointed to the diaper bag, now visible to many as the tablecloth had been disturbed. "And for those who doubt, just look under the head table, a lovely blue diaper bag, ready for the newest member of the family." The aftermath was pure chaos. The wedding reception quickly devolved into shouting and accusations. Sarah ran out, sobbing, David hot on her heels. The guests were either outraged, gossiping furiously, or simply stunned into silence. My own relatives looked at me with a mixture of shock and reluctant admiration. Emily, who had initially been speechless, eventually approached me, her eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions: hurt, anger, but also a flicker of vindication. Leo, my brave little grandson, came up to me and hugged my legs as if to say, "Thank you, Grandma, for finally telling the truth." David and Sarah's wedding was, of course, completely ruined. They left the venue in a flurry, and I later learned they had a heated argument that lasted for days. The news spread like wildfire throughout our family and social circles. David's reputation was in tatters. Many people, including some of his closest friends, were appalled by his deception. Sarah did, indeed, give birth to a baby boy a few months later, confirming my accusation. The timeline proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the affair and pregnancy had occurred while David was still married to Emily. They went through a very difficult period, trying to navigate their new marriage and a newborn baby under the shadow of scandal. I have to admit, I felt little sympathy for them. Emily, on the other hand, found a strange sense of peace. The truth, however painful, set her free. She received an outpouring of support from friends and family, and she began the process of healing and rebuilding her life. She even met someone new, a wonderful man who cherished her and Leo. David and I still have a strained relationship. He hasn't forgiven me for what I did, for exposing his lies so publicly. He sees it as an unforgivable betrayal. But I don't regret it, not for a second. Sometimes the truth is messy and it hurts, but it's always necessary. So, that's my story. A wedding day that turned into a battlefield of secrets and revelations. I often wonder about the long-term impact of my actions, but when I look at Emily, happy and thriving, and at Leo, growing into a confident, secure boy, I know I made the right choice. Sometimes, family loyalty means protecting the innocent, even if it means confronting the guilty, no matter how painful it might be. Like this video, if you were on my side, if you believe that sometimes the truth needs to be told, no matter the cost. Subscribe for more stories like this, where real life drama unfolds in the most unexpected ways. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Was I a vengeful mother-in-law or a protector of truth? I'll see you all in the next story. SE Polish language ma convert KR